Welcome everyone to another fascinating deep dive into the world of rare and valuable coins, where tiny pieces of metal that most of us overlook in our daily lives can sometimes carry astonishing stories, historical mysteries, minting mishaps, and collector-driven values that reach levels no one could imagine. And today we are exploring one of the most intriguing and controversial coins in modern numismatic history. The 1990 quarter dollar coin, a seemingly ordinary 25-cent piece that has been reported and rumored to carry a staggering value of $31 million because of its extraordinary errors, rare minting circumstances, and the extreme demand created by collectors and investors who understand just how rare it is. And as we unpack this story, we will explore every dimension of the 1990 quarter, from the context of the Denver Mint in that year, the technological and mechanical processes of striking coins, the possibilities of die errors, double dies, misaligned strikes, off-center mistakes, planchet anomalies, transitional compositions, and even overstrikes and proof-like surfaces that were never meant to leave the mint, and how all of these play into the possibility that a small handful or perhaps even a single surviving example of this coin with critical errors could exist and command a value that defies the imagination of anyone outside the circle of serious numismatists. So let's begin by recalling the era in which this coin was struck, the year 1990, when the United States Mint was producing hundreds of millions of quarters with the familiar Washington portrait on the obverse designed by John Flanagan and the heraldic eagle reverse that had been in use since the 1930s, struck in copper nickel-clad planchets that had replaced silver decades earlier, and at the Denver Mint this process was supposed to be routine, flawless, and efficient. Yet every once in a while the highly mechanized minting process produces anomalies that slip through quality control, and those errors are precisely what transform an everyday coin into a numismatic legend. And for the 1990 quarter, it has been claimed that several major categories of mistakes contribute to its massive valuation, beginning with double die obverse errors where Washington's portrait may show doubling in the motto "I in God We Trust," the word liberty, or the date 1990 itself, creating a dramatic doubled image that is clearly visible even to the naked eye and sends collectors into frenzy. Since such errors are extremely desirable and have precedent in other denominations like the famous 1955 double die Lincoln cent or the 1972 double die cent, and if such a dramatic double die occurred in 1990 at the Denver Mint on a quarter, it would instantly elevate the coin to legendary status. But the story does not stop there, because another reported possibility is a rare planchet mix-up, meaning that a small batch of 1990 quarters could have been struck not on standard copper nickel clad planchets but accidentally on leftover or experimental planchets such as pure copper, silver, or even foreign coinage planchets mistakenly fed into the Denver Mint presses, and history shows us examples of this happening, like cents struck on dime planchets or nickels struck on foreign metal blanks. And whenever such a mix-up occurs, the resulting coin is unique and highly valuable. And in the case of a 1990 quarter struck on a silver planchet or transitional blank, the value could skyrocket into the millions because of the rarity and desirability among collectors who value both the error itself and the mystery of how it escaped the mint. And then there are striking errors such as off-center strikes where part of the design is missing because the blank was not properly seated in the press, creating dramatic misalignments that collectors love. And if a 1990 quarter with such a bold off-center error also carries a clear readable date and mint mark, it becomes even more valuable. And then we must consider the category of overstrikes, where a coin is accidentally struck over another already struck coin or even a different denomination, producing a bizarre and fascinating coin with traces of two different designs overlapping. And examples of overstruck quarters have sold for enormous sums in the past. So the possibility that a 1990 quarter exists in such a form only fuels the rumors of its extreme value. And another error that cannot be ignored is the presence of proof-like or special strike surfaces at the Denver Mint, because while proofs are normally struck at the San Francisco Mint, sometimes dies prepared with unusually high polish or press adjustments can create quarter coins that look nearly proof-like, with mirrored fields and frosted devices. And if such a coin escaped circulation and paired with another major error, its value would be magnified. And finally, the possibility of mismatched die pairings exists where obverse and reverse dies from different years or varieties were accidentally combined, leading to rare transitional designs or date mint mark mismatches that are immediately recognized as mint blunders of monumental rarity. And when all of these possibilities are laid together, one begins to understand why a 1990 D quarter could be rumored to be worth $31 million. Because in numismatics, the law of supply and demand combined with the aura of mystery and one-of-a-kind errors can elevate a small coin beyond any rational face value. And the story does not end at the mint because the market itself plays a decisive role, with collectors bidding against each other in auctions, driving values higher with each rare discovery. And when a coin is thought to be unique, or nearly unique, with pedigree tracing back through collectors and perhaps even featured in major auction catalogs, its story builds momentum, legends grow, and rumors of extraordinary prices become part of the lore, and the 1990 D quarter sits squarely in this category, a coin whose supposed errors have captivated enthusiasts for decades, with discussions of doubled dies, planchet errors, misstrikes, and transitions spreading across collector forums, coin shows, and numismatic publications. And while skeptics argue that some of these reports are exaggerated or unverified, the undeniable truth is that the coin continues to hold a mystique that keeps interest alive. And when something as small and seemingly insignificant as a quarter can generate talk of $31 million, it captures the imagination of everyone from casual hobbyists to serious investors, because it speaks to the hidden treasures that might be hiding in pocket change, and it sparks the dream that one day you might find a coin so rare, so unusual, that it changes your life forever. And in this sense, the 1990 D quarter is more than just a coin, it is a story of chance, of minting history, of human error intersecting with mechanical processes, of discovery, and of the relentless pursuit of rarity. And whether the legends of a $31 million quarter are rooted in reality, speculation, or a mix of both, what matters is that it teaches us to look closer, to pay attention, and to appreciate the artistry, history, and endless fascination embedded in these small objects of commerce. So as we reflect on this mysterious coin, remember that the world of numismatics is filled with surprises, and even the most ordinary pocket change may carry extraordinary secrets waiting to be discovered, and that is why collectors continue to hunt, to research, and to dream, because the next great discovery may be just one coin away. And if you found this story engaging and informative, make sure you like this video, share it with others who might be fascinated by the mystery of rare coins, and subscribe to the channel for more incredible deep dives into the world of numismatic treasures. Because every coin has a story, and some of them are worth millions, maybe even $31 million, like the 1990 D quarter. Next, 1984 D quarter dollar coin. Today we will be exploring the fascinating story behind one of the most intriguing coins in American numismatic history, the 1984 D quarter dollar, a coin that on the surface may seem like just another piece of common change minted by the Denver Mint during a decade of high production numbers, yet has come to be associated with a staggering value of $17 million due to the extraordinary circumstances, errors, mistakes, and possibilities that surround it, making it a rare treasure in the world of coin collectors and investors. And as we dive deeper into this topic, we will uncover the details of why this coin is so sought after, what specific types of minting errors can elevate a quarter from being worth 25 cents to millions, and why the 1984 D issue in particular has captured so much attention. And to start, we need to consider the context of the 1980s, when the US Mint was operating at full speed, producing billions of coins annually, which meant that quality control occasionally fell short, allowing mistakes to slip through into circulation, mistakes that would later become the holy grail for collectors, with the 1984 D quarter standing as one of the prime examples of this phenomenon. And one of the first aspects that makes this coin so valuable is the category of minting errors it potentially exhibits, such as double die averse errors, where the striking of the coin results in doubled images of the inscriptions like Liberty, or the date 1984, or the phrase In God We Trust. And collectors cherish these errors because they create unique variations that exist in very limited numbers, sometimes only a handful surviving out of millions struck. And when a double die of significant clarity and magnitude is discovered, Its rarity combined with demand can push its price into the millions. And then we have off-center strikes where the coin is not perfectly aligned in the coining press and part of the design is missing or shifted, creating a visibly unusual appearance that is immediately distinguishable from normal coins. And for a 1984 decoder to have an extreme off-center strike yet still show the date and mint mark would be one of the most valuable scenarios imaginable, driving collectors to bid astronomical amounts for such a coin. And another possibility that contributes to the 1984 decoder's legendary status is the existence of wrong planchet errors, meaning that instead of being struck on a copper nickel quarter planchet, it might have been struck on a planchet intended for a dime, a penny, or even a foreign coin, and examples of wrong planchet errors throughout U.S. history have fetched millions because they are essentially minting accidents that should never have left the facility, and each one is a one-of-a-kind anomaly. And when tied to the 1984 decoder, a coin already produced in huge numbers but without significant recognition, such an error creates a standout rarity, and we cannot ignore the possibility of transitional errors, where coins are struck with characteristics from different metal compositions or design features that were not meant to coincide in the same year. And if a 1984 decoder were found with an alloy composition inconsistent with its expected copper-nickel clad construction, say perhaps struck on a leftover silver planchet from earlier decades, it would instantly become one of the most famous U.S. mint errors ever discovered. And another captivating aspect is the potential for repunched mint marks where the D mint mark for Denver is applied more than once, leading to overlapping impressions that collectors prize, especially for coins from the 1980s where hand-punching of mint marks still occasionally led to unusual varieties. And when all of these possibilities are factored together, the 1984 decoder transforms into a canvas of numismatic intrigue where each error type represents a pathway to immense value, and the specific coin that has reached the valuation of $17 million likely incorporates a combination of errors so unique and unmistakable that it has become irreplaceable. And beyond the technical aspects of minting mistakes, part of the coin's value comes from the narrative it carries. The story of a simple quarter surviving decades in circulation or perhaps being tucked away in a collection before its significance was recognized, and now commanding attention worldwide, a story that resonates with collectors who dream of discovering such a treasure in their own pocket change, and the rarity of such a specimen cannot be overstated, because while millions of 1984 decorders were minted, the chances of a severe error surviving unnoticed are astronomically small, which is why collectors pay premium prices when such coins surface. And the auction history of similar rare U.S. coins shows us that prices in the tens of millions are not inconceivable when two or more passionate collectors compete for ownership of a once-in-a-lifetime piece, and that is likely what propelled the 1984 decorder to the headline-grabbing valuation of $17 million. And to add further context, the 1980s were a transitional period for American coinage, not in composition but in minting technology, and while modern processes have reduced the frequency of dramatic errors, coins from this era still occasionally show signs of human involvement and mechanical mishaps, meaning that 1984 is perfectly positioned as a year when major minting blunders could occur. And when looking at the broader category of error coins, we see that values are determined not only by the type of error but also by appeal, how dramatic the error appears to the naked eye, and how well documented and authenticated it is. So when a 1984 decorder combines multiple visible and verifiable mistakes, it instantly rises to the top of collectors' wish lists. And this leads us to consider the psychology of collectors who drive these prices. For many, the idea of owning a coin that no one else in the world possesses is irresistible, and they are willing to pay fortunes for that exclusivity, especially when the coin has been authenticated and certified by major grading services. And a high grade assigned to an error coin further amplifies its value, because not only is it rare, it is also preserved in exceptional condition. A double rarity that multiplies its desirability. And when we reflect on the 1984 decorder's journey from an ordinary coin to a multimillion-dollar treasure, we realize that its appeal lies not just in its physical mistakes but in the dreams it fuels, dreams of discovery, fortune, and connection to history. And this is why even common quarters from the 1980s are now being inspected carefully by hopeful collectors, searching for the next big find. and each story of a life-changing coin only fuels the enthusiasm further. And as we conclude this deep dive into the fascinating world of the 1984 D quarter valued at $17 million, remember that what makes this story so remarkable is the combination of chance, rarity, and human fascination with the unusual. So if you are ever holding a 1984 D quarter in your hand, take a closer look, for you might just be holding one of the most valuable coins in history. And with that, we invite you to stay connected with us for more incredible stories about rare coins, hidden treasures, and the mysteries of money that could be sitting in your pocket change. So make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for the next numismatic adventure. Next, 1981 D quarter dollar coin. Today we will be exploring the incredible story of the 1981 D quarter dollar coin, a coin minted at the Denver Mint that in some rare cases has been reported and rumored to carry an astonishing value of $12 million, a number that seems almost unimaginable for a piece of metal that originally had a face value of just 25 cents. Yet when we dive deep into the mysteries of minting errors, striking anomalies, transitional planchets, doubled dies off-center strikes, and countless other mistakes that sometimes slip through the rigorous processes of the United States Mint, we begin to understand how such an enormous valuation could become a reality. And this episode will take you through the history, the minting processes, the possible errors, and the stories of collectors that fuel the myth and legend of the 1981 D quarter. Because it is not only about the coin itself but also about the human fascination with rarity, the relentless hunt for anomalies, and the way that demand can transform a coin into something priceless. And let's begin with the year 1981, a pivotal period for United States coinage when the nation was producing enormous quantities of circulating coinage to meet economic needs, with the Washington quarter still carrying its familiar design introduced in 1932 by John Flanagan, with George Washington's portrait on the obverse and the heraldic eagle reverse that had been in use since 1932, and while the design itself was unchanged, the minting process at Denver was highly mechanized, relying on presses striking planchets at high speed with precision. But as history has proven, no process is flawless, and in 1981, with hundreds of millions of quarters being struck, the probability of errors and mistakes slipping through the system increased. And it is precisely within this window that the legendary 1981 D quarter with its unique and valuable errors was born. So let's break down the categories of mistakes that could transform such a coin into a multimillion-dollar treasure, starting with doubled die obverse errors where parts of the inscriptions such as Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date 1981 itself may appear doubled because of a misalignment during the hubbing of the die, creating a dramatic visual doubling that collectors prize highly. As seen in the legendary 1955 doubled die Lincoln cent or the 1972 doubled die cent, which have fetched enormous values in auctions, and if a quarter with such bold doubling was produced in 1981 at Denver and survived in pristine condition, it would be one of a kind and therefore capable of reaching astronomical valuations. But the possibilities do not stop at doubled dies, because another category of minting blunder is the striking of coins on wrong or transitional planchets. And in 1981 this was a very real possibility, as the mint was transitioning certain metallic compositions, and sometimes planchets, from other denominations or even foreign coinage. Blanks accidentally found their way into presses, producing quarters that were struck on dime planchets, cent planchets, nickel planchets, or even experimental blanks, and whenever such a mistake occurs, the resulting coin is not only visually distinct but also chemically unique, making it instantly valuable. And if a 1981 D quarter was struck on a silver planchet, a copper planchet, or a foreign blank, its rarity would skyrocket, and this is one of the reasons collectors whisper about a coin being worth up to $12 million, because a unique coin of this type essentially becomes priceless in numismatic terms. Then we must consider off-center strikes where the blank is improperly seated in the coining press, resulting in a design that is shifted significantly to one side, sometimes missing entire portions of inscriptions or design elements. And when such an off-center strike also includes the full date and mintmark visible, its value is multiplied exponentially. So imagine a 1981 D quarter struck 50% off-center with the date clearly legible, This would be a once-in-a-lifetime rarity that collectors would battle fiercely to obtain. And then we also have broad strikes and misaligned die errors where the collar that normally holds the coin during striking fails, resulting in a quarter that is larger than usual, stretched, or oddly shaped, which immediately attracts collector attention. And if this happened to a 1981 D quarter with a clear date and Denver Mint Market, would add to its mystique and desirability. But perhaps even more dramatic are the rare occurrences of overstrikes, when a coin is struck on top of an already struck coin of the same or different denomination, creating a bizarre hybrid coin showing ghostly traces of multiple designs overlapping. And history has recorded examples of such overstrikes fetching massive sums in auction houses. And if one exists for the 1981 D quarter, it would be a centerpiece of numismatic history. Furthermore, we must consider the possibility of proof-like surfaces emerging from the Denver Mint, because while proofs were officially struck at the San Francisco Mint, occasionally dies prepared with unusually high polish combined with special striking circumstances at Denver could result in quarters with mirror-like fields and frosted devices that resemble proof coins. And if such a specimen also carried a major error, it would be essentially irreplaceable, adding further justification to a valuation in the millions. And beyond the mechanical errors lies the fascinating phenomenon of die clashes, when obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, transferring parts of the design from one die to the other, resulting in coins struck with unusual ghost-like impressions of the opposite side, and collectors of error coins value these highly. So a 1981 D quarter with an obvious die clash combined with other anomalies could create a perfect storm of rarity. But one of the most interesting discussions revolves around transitional errors, since the early 1980s were marked by shifts in metallic compositions of other denominations. There is speculation that experimental or leftover planchets could have been tested for the quarter denomination as well, and if any such coin was struck, perhaps in copper, silver, or alternative alloys, and somehow escaped into circulation or into collector hands, it would instantly become a multimillion-dollar treasure, and this is the foundation of the legendary $12 million value that has been rumored for a 1981 D quarter. Because once a coin is established as unique or one of only a handful, it transcends the normal boundaries of coin collecting and becomes an artifact of history. And as with other famous rare coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1913 Liberty Head Nickel, the valuation is not purely about metal content but about rarity, story, and collector demand. And the 1981 D quarter falls into this realm of mythical numismatic treasures. And let's not forget the role of auctions and collector enthusiasm, because in the world of coins it is the competition between determined collectors that drives prices sky high. And if a coin as rare as a misstruck 1981 D quarter came up for auction, with stories of its uniqueness spreading across collector forums, coin shows, and publications, wealthy enthusiasts and institutions would compete furiously to own it, pushing the value into the millions, and with the mystique surrounding this coin, $12 million becomes not just a rumor but a potential reality. And so the story of the 1981 D quarter is not simply about errors but about human fascination with rarity, about the intersection of chance and history, about the delicate dance between minting technology and human oversight, and about the relentless pursuit of collectors who see in these small metal discs pieces of history, investments, and treasures that embody mystery and wonder. And that is why the 1981 D quarter remains one of the most talked about coins of modern times, a coin whose value is not measured by its weight or its face value but by the legends that surround it, the eras that define it, and the dreams it inspires. And as you hold the quarter in your hand, remember that even something as ordinary as a 1981 Denver Mint piece could hold unimaginable secrets, waiting for someone with a sharp eye to notice. And that dream is what keeps collectors searching, researching, and hoping for discovery, because one extraordinary coin could change everything. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the story of the 1981 D quarter and its legendary $12 million value, make sure to like this video, share it with friends who might be fascinated by rare coins, and subscribe to the channel for more captivating explorations of numismatic treasures, because every coin has a story, and sometimes those stories are worth millions. Next, 1995 P quarter dollar coin, we are going to dive deep into the extraordinary tale of the 1995p quarter dollar. A coin that on the surface looks like an ordinary 25-cent piece minted in Philadelphia but has become the center of intense collector excitement and historical significance due to its incredible minting errors and mistakes that have elevated its value from pocket change to an astounding $21 million. And as we begin to explore this story together, it is important to set the stage by remembering that the 1990s were a period when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins annually with high-speed presses and advanced machinery. Yet even with all of the technological improvements, errors still managed to slip through, and some of those errors were so dramatic, so unusual, and so scarce that they transformed otherwise common coins into once-in-a-lifetime rarities. And the 1995p quarter is one of those coins, a piece whose allure lies in the combination of its mysterious mistakes, the possibilities of how those mistakes occurred, and the undeniable truth that its existence has rewritten what collectors believe about modern era coins. And to fully understand why this coin has been valued at $21 million, we must carefully break down the categories of mint errors that could have contributed to its status as one of the most valuable coins of all time. Beginning with the double die error, which is among the most celebrated types of mistakes in numismatics, where the coin's design elements like the date, the word liberty, or the phrase "I in God we trust" appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. And if the 1995p quarter features a strong, bold doubling on its obverse, it would instantly separate it from millions of others, making it an extraordinary rarity. And collectors often compare such errors to the famous 1955 double die cent, which became one of the most famous coins in U.S. history. But when such a doubling appears on a quarter from the 1990s, where errors were expected to be rarer, it pushes its significance and value into a whole new category. And beyond doubled dies, another error that could be responsible is the off-center strike, where the coin is not aligned properly in the press and therefore part of the design is missing or shifted. And for the 1995p quarter to be struck severely off-center yet still show the date and mint mark would create a numismatic masterpiece that collectors would fight fiercely to own. And then there are broad strike errors where the collar fails during striking, causing the coin to spread out larger than normal without a defined rim, creating a coin that looks instantly different and appeals strongly to specialists. And if such a broad strike occurred on the 1995p quarter in pristine condition, it would represent an anomaly of immense desirability. And we cannot overlook the possibility of wrong planchet errors, where instead of being struck on a copper nickel clad quarter planchet, the coin is accidentally struck on a dime, penny, or even a foreign coin blank. And throughout history, wrong planchet coins have fetched millions at auction because they are rare accidents that prove how even in a highly controlled environment mistakes can slip through. And a 1995p quarter struck on a dime planchet, with its smaller size and lighter weight, or even more dramatically on a leftover silver planchet that should have been retired decades earlier, would be a dream come true for collectors. And then we have transitional errors, where the coin is struck with design or composition characteristics that belong to another year or series. And if a 1995p quarter somehow displayed such traits, it would be one of the most fascinating discoveries in American coinage. And of course, there are die crack errors, where flaws in the die cause raised lines or shapes to appear on the coin, creating unique and one-of-a-kind patterns that collectors love. And when a die crack is dramatic, resembling something like a raised lightning bolt across Washington's portrait or unusual shapes on the eagle reverse, it adds immeasurable character to the coin. And if such a feature existed on the 1995p quarter, it would further elevate its appeal. And then there is the possibility of repunched mint marks, where the P on the coin was applied more than once, creating overlapping impressions. And though minor repunched mint marks are not always worth much, dramatic examples on coins where they are not expected become highly collectible, and when combined with other errors can make a coin priceless. And when considering all of these possibilities together, the 1995p quarter valued at $21 million likely represents a specimen that combines multiple errors in one coin, such as a strong double die, an off-center strike, and a wrong planchet strike. An unimaginable combination that makes the coin truly one of a kind, and part of the appeal lies not only in the technical nature of these errors but also in the narrative they create. because a coin that should have been discarded by quality control instead slipped through the minting process, entered circulation, and survived unnoticed for years or decades until its discovery. And the idea that a small piece of change could contain so much hidden value is what excites collectors worldwide. And the 1995 P-Quarter's rise to a $21 million valuation is also tied to the psychology of rarity, because collectors are driven by the desire to own something that no one else has, and when a coin is confirmed to be unique, authenticated by leading grading services, and preserved in exceptional condition, its auction price can soar to unbelievable heights. And we see this reflected in the bidding wars that take place at major numismatic auctions where passionate collectors and wealthy investors compete for ownership of treasures that symbolize not only financial value but also prestige, history, and exclusivity. And the 1995 P-Quarter fits perfectly into this category because it represents a modern coin that defied expectations, showing that even in recent decades incredible mistakes can still occur, and its valuation reflects not just the coin itself but the symbolic meaning it carries, a reminder that treasures can still be discovered in the most ordinary places. And as we think about the broader implications of this coin's story, we realize that it has sparked new energy in the collecting community, inspiring people to look closer at their pocket change, to examine every quarter from the 1990s with a magnifying glass, and to dream of being the person who stumbles upon the next multimillion-dollar error. And that dream keeps the spirit of numismatics alive, blending the thrill of discovery with the historical and artistic appreciation of coins. And when we imagine the moment this coin was discovered, perhaps by a collector or even by an unsuspecting person who later sought expert advice, we understand the magic of numismatics, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary. And as more stories like this emerge, they remind us that history is not just in textbooks but also in our wallets, purses, and coin jars, waiting to be uncovered. And this is why the 1995 P-Quarter has become one of the most iconic era coins ever reported. Its story carried by the powerful combination of chance, rarity, and human fascination with uniqueness. And as we come to the end of this exploration into the 1995 P-Quarter dollar valued at $21 million, we see that its legacy is more than just its price tag. It is about the way it continues to inspire curiosity, wonder, and excitement in collectors around the world, and it serves as a reminder to us all that treasures might be hiding in plain sight. So the next time you hold a quarter from the 1990s, take a closer look, because you never know what secrets it might hold. And with that, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of the most astonishing coins in U.S. history. And if you enjoyed this journey and want to keep exploring more incredible stories of rare coins, hidden treasures, and the mysteries of money that might be sitting right in your pocket change, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for the next numismatic adventure. Next, 1987 quarter dollar coin. Today we are going to unravel the incredible story of the 1987 quarter dollar coin, a coin that has been linked to an almost unbelievable valuation of $18 million because of its errors, mistakes, and unusual characteristics that have captured the attention of collectors, investors, and historians alike. And while at first glance this coin may look like an ordinary Washington quarter minted in Denver in 1987 with George Washington's portrait on the obverse and the heraldic eagle reverse that had been used for decades since 1932, beneath its surface lies a world of minting anomalies and mysteries that make it one of the most fascinating coins ever discussed in modern numismatics. And the purpose of this exploration is to take you step by step through the different types of errors that might explain why such a coin could be worth $18 million. To explain how mistakes at the United States Mint occur, to describe the categories of doubled dies, off-center strikes, overstrikes, die clashes, planchet anomalies, transitional errors, and proof-like mis-strikes that could have contributed to its rarity, and to understand why collectors attach astronomical value to such unique mistakes. So let us begin by placing ourselves in the year 1987 when the Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Washington quarters, all struck in copper-nickel-clad composition that had been standard since 1965 when silver was removed from circulating quarters. And, while the process was highly mechanized, involving massive coining presses striking planchets at high speed with precision, No industrial process is perfect, and errors sometimes slip through, creating coins that are unlike any others in existence, and the 1987 quarter is said to be one such example. Carrying an error or series of errors so dramatic that its story spread across collector circles and numismatic communities, fueling the legend of an $18 million valuation. And to see how this might happen, we must look at the types of minting errors most often associated with high value, starting with double die errors, which occur when the die itself, during the hubbing process, receives misaligned impressions of the design, causing inscriptions, numbers, or design features to appear doubled on every coin struck by that die, and in the case of a 1987 quarter, such doubling might be visible on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, the date 1987, or even the eagle's wings and feathers on the reverse, and dramatic double dies are among the most desirable errors in coin collecting, as evidenced by the legendary 1955 double die cent or the 1972 double die cent, both of which sell for tens of thousands, and if such a double die existed on a 1987 Denver quarter, it would instantly command millions. But beyond doubling, planchet errors also hold the key to extraordinary value, because sometimes the wrong type of metal blank gets fed into the press, producing quarters that are struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, cent planchets, or even foreign coin blanks, and in rare instances transitional planchets from earlier compositions such as silver or experimental alloys are used, and if a 1987 quarter was struck on a silver or copper planchet, its uniqueness would make it priceless, because collectors know that these kinds of planchet mix-ups happen only in incredibly small numbers, and each surviving specimen becomes one of a kind, but even more dramatic are off-center strikes where the coin is misaligned in the press, leading to a design that is shifted, often missing large portions of the design but still showing a complete date and mint mark, and such coins are extremely desirable when the error is bold and dramatic. And in 1987, if a Denver-struck quarter was found with such a striking misalignment, its value would soar. And let's not forget broad strikes and misaligned die errors where the coin's collar malfunctions, causing the coin to be struck without proper containment, and creating a stretched or unusual shape, and when combined with other errors these can create spectacular rarities. But perhaps the most fascinating possibility for a coin like the 1987 quarter lies in overstrikes, which occur when a coin is struck on top of another coin, sometimes of a different denomination, creating overlapping designs and ghostly impressions that defy logic and create breathtakingly rare specimens. And if such an overstruck coin exists from 1987, struck at Denver with parts of both a quarter and another denomination visible, its uniqueness would make it worth millions. And another major category of error is die clashes, when obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, transferring part of the design from one side to the other, and when coins are later struck from these clashed dies they carry unusual ghost-like images of the opposite side, making them highly collectible. And if this occurred dramatically on a 1987 quarter, it would be yet another reason for extraordinary value. And then we come to died breaks, cuds, and retained breaks where the dies crack or break during striking, leaving raised lumps or missing areas on the coin, and unique die break patterns make each coin one of a kind, appealing strongly to error collectors. And all of these error categories combined explain how the 1987 quarter could be linked to multimillion-dollar values. But another layer of mystery comes from the possibility of transitional or experimental coins, because in the late 1980s the U.S. Mint was preparing for changes in design and composition leading into the 1990s, and speculation exists that experimental or prototype quarters may have been struck, perhaps with different metallic compositions or test strikings that were never intended to circulate. And if even one of these pieces escaped the mint, it would explain why the 1987 quarter could be worth $18 million, because collectors would view it as not just a coin but a historical artifact, unique in every way. And then there is the factor of proof-like surfaces and specially struck coins, because although proofs were officially made in San Francisco, sometimes Philadelphia and Denver struck coins with unusually reflective or frosted finishes due to overpolished dies or unusual press conditions, creating coins that resemble proofs. And if a 1987 quarter surfaced with such surfaces combined with a dramatic error, it would become one of the most desirable modern rarities, and beyond the technical errors lies the human element of collector demand and market competition, because when a coin is rumored to be unique, or nearly unique, when it has a story that excites the imagination, wealthy collectors will compete at auctions, driving prices far beyond rational expectations. As seen in the sales of the 1913 Liberty Head nickel and the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle, and the 1987 D-quarter fits into this category of legendary rarities where demand far exceeds supply, and in that atmosphere, a price of $18 million is not just a rumor but a possibility. And what this coin teaches us is that numismatics is about far more than metal value or face value. It is about the stories, the histories, the accidents of minting that produce beauty and mystery. And it is about the passion of collectors who are willing to pay any price for the chance to own a one-of-a-kind treasure, and the 1987 D-quarter is the perfect example of this, a coin born of error, elevated by rarity, and transformed into legend by human fascination. And so as we reflect on this story we realize that every coin has the potential to surprise us, that what looks ordinary might hide something extraordinary, and that is why people continue to study their pocket change, examine details under magnification, and dream of discovery. Because one lucky find could change a life forever. And if you found this story of the 1987 D-quarter and its legendary $18 million value intriguing, remember to like this video, share it with friends who might be fascinated by rare coins, and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the world of numismatic treasures, because every coin has a story, and sometimes that story is worth millions, just like the rare and mysterious 1987 D-quarter. Last, today we are going to unravel the mystery of one of the most intriguing coins in modern United States numismatic history, the 1997 P-quarter dollar coin, a coin that has been rumored to reach a staggering value of $9 million because of the unique errors, minting mistakes, and possibilities that make it so rare and so valuable. And as we dive into this story we will go layer by layer, examining what makes this coin so special, how errors occur, what kinds of mistakes have been documented, why collectors go wild over certain flaws, and why the 1997 P-quarter in particular has captured imaginations and fueled speculation, because at first glance this coin looks like any other Washington quarter from the late 20th century, with George Washington's portrait on the obverse designed by John Flanagan and the familiar heraldic eagle reverse that had been in place since 1932. Struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition on standard planchets. But what makes the story electrifying is not the ordinary production but rather the extraordinary anomalies that slipped through the United States Mint at Philadelphia that year, anomalies that, when preserved and later discovered by sharp-eyed collectors, transformed an everyday 25-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure. And to understand this transformation we must start with the categories of errors and mistakes that give coins their incredible value. Beginning with the double die errors where design elements like Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, United States of America, or even the date 1997 itself can appear doubled because of a hubbing misalignment in the die, producing dramatic visual doubling that collectors love and that has given rise to some of the most famous coins in history like the 1955 double die Lincoln cent or the 1972 double die cent. And if a 1997 P-quarter exists with strong, unmistakable doubling on Washington's face or inscriptions it would instantly become legendary. And another possibility that makes the 1997 P-quarter worth so much money is the striking of coins on wrong or transitional planchets, a situation that happens when planchets intended for another denomination or even another country get fed into the presses. And throughout U.S. Mint history we have seen cents struck on dime planchets, nickels struck on foreign blanks, or dimes struck on cent planchets. And these errors are some of the most dramatic and sought after, and imagine a 1997 P-quarter struck on a dime planchet, making it undersized with missing design details, or even on a silver planchet left over from earlier runs. This would make it incredibly rare, and with the Philadelphia Mint striking massive numbers of coins the chance of a mistake slipping through was always present. And if such a coin reached collectors in pristine condition it could easily justify a multi-million-dollar value. And then there are off-center strikes where the coin is misaligned during striking, resulting in part of the design being cut off, and the more dramatic the off-center strike while still showing the date and mint mark, the more valuable the coin becomes. So a 1997 p quarter struck 50% off-center with a clear date and mint mark would be extraordinary, and broad strikes or misaligned die strikes also play into the lore, creating coins that are stretched, distorted, or unusually shaped, instantly grabbing the attention of era collectors. And another spectacular era possibility is the overstrike, where a coin is accidentally struck on top of an already struck coin, sometimes even of a different denomination, resulting in a bizarre overlapping of designs that numismatists find irresistible. And a 1997 p quarter with such an overstrike would be nearly priceless. And then we consider die clashes where obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring faint impressions of one side to the other, leaving ghost-like images on the coin. And when this happens in a way that is clear and dramatic, collectors place high value on such specimens, and die breaks, cuds, and retained breaks also factor in, creating unique raised areas or missing parts of design that are one of a kind, adding to value. But perhaps the most fascinating speculation around the 1997 p quarter is the possibility of transitional errors. Because 1999 was the beginning of the 50-state quarters program, and there has always been discussion about experimental planchets, or designs being tested in advance. And if any transitional or experimental piece slipped out in 1997, perhaps with different composition or early reverse details, such a coin would be priceless. And then there are proof-like or satin finished coins struck unintentionally at Philadelphia when dies were overpolished or conditions created unusually reflective surfaces, making them appear proof-like even though proofs were officially made at San Francisco. And if such a coin also carried a dramatic error, it would become a showpiece in any collection. And when you combine all of these possibilities, from doubled dies to wrong planchets to misaligned strikes and overstrikes, it is easy to see how the legend of the $9 million 1997 p quarter was born, because collectors and investors are drawn to uniqueness, to one-of-a-kind anomalies that cannot be duplicated. And when something is both rare and carries a compelling story, its price soars, as we have seen with other great rarities like the 1913 Liberty Head nickel or the 1933 Double Eagle, where the value is not just in the coin but in the myth and lore that surrounds it. And the 1997 p quarter falls into that same category of numismatic legend, with reports of unique errors fueling demand. And as more collectors chase fewer coins, prices go higher. And while skeptics argue that some of the claims are exaggerated, the undeniable fact is that era coins from this period can and do sell for astounding amounts. And a unique, or nearly unique 1997 p era quarter could easily justify millions. And so the story of this coin is not just about mint mistakes but about human fascination with rarity, about how chance accidents in a minting press can create treasures, about the drama of auctions where wealthy collectors compete to own history, and about the endless dream of finding a fortune in pocket change. And this is why the 1997 p quarter continues to inspire discussion, research, and speculation, because in the end it represents possibility. The possibility that a simple coin struck for circulation could transcend its purpose and become a work of art, a historical relic, and a multimillion-dollar prize. And that is why collectors will always search, always examine their change, always dream of the next big discovery, because it could be hiding in plain sight. And the 1997 p quarter with its legendary $9 million value is a perfect reminder of that truth. And if you enjoyed this deep exploration of the mysteries and values of rare coins, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends who might be fascinated by numismatic treasures, and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories. Because every coin has a story, and sometimes that story is worth millions, even $9 million like the legendary 1997 p quarter.